Can we ever know enough about Jesus to really tell people the truth about him? Can we really ever know enough about Christ to preach the good news of the gospel of Jesus? How can we know enough? How can we share without knowing Christ in all his fullness? How do we do that?
I heard somebody say one time that Jesus comes to live in our hearts. Did Jesus do that? Jesus lives in our hearts? How does that happen?
I don't think I heard it. Because he's basically the heart.
He is the heart? So do you think Jesus can be like one with us? What do you think that means? He said, I pray that they would be one, and I would be in them, and they would be in me. What does that mean? You agree with that? How does that happen? What do you think? How that happened?
I don't know.
Sometimes I get restless with the things that I don't know. It burns in me to understand things that I have no idea how to search out. I have no idea how to run after, and my mind feels like it's gonna go crazy trying to understand things that I just can't grasp. And when it comes to the Lord, I know that there's people like my teenage self who just had this stance of like, if I can't understand it, then it's not real. I know there's agnostics who just resolve that I'll never understand, so I can't know. But there is this promise that we have in the scriptures with Jesus that one day when we see him, he will be fully known. And until then, it's this constant tension of being a mystery. And just like when you're engaged to somebody, you know, part of the romance of the engagement is this mystery that will be unveiled as you come closer to your marriage date. And even after you get married, you continue to get to know each other. So this is what I was exploring with my friend Bill, this question about the mystery of Christ and how we could ever be qualified to speak about Christ and the gospel if we can't know him fully, when there's such a tension in the mystery. I want to talk about what you're saying, the last thought you said, the mystical nature.
Yeah, of Colossians. Why Colossians is so mystical. And you have to have that. You have to have that mystical spiritual side to even understand this book.
Okay, so the thing is, the mystical nature of God
Yeah.
is so, it's not a secret if you read the scripture from the very first verse.
Right.
I mean, God, you believe in God, immediately you're mystical.
Right.
This is why scientists are so offended at even the idea of God, because immediately
Yes.
you're mystical.
Yes.
Because God is mystical.
This is true.
So this is an offensive term at
But
in
he's
some
not
places.
this is so important. He's not a mystery to be solved. He's a mystery to be embraced. And to embrace the mystery of who God is really what Paul has done. As a Pharisee, Paul was trying to eliminate all the mystical part of the existence of God. These people had this mystical tradition that was passed down to them, but now education is starting to take over to the point where it's been a long time since God's done any major miracles. So those things are shoved off into the past, and they're not expected in the future. When Paul has the encounter with Jesus on the road to Damascus, it's interesting because he has a conversation. He's knocked off his horse and he's blinded by the light, and there he is. And Jesus says, "Hey, why are you persecuting me?" And he answers back with a question. What? Okay, time out. Who are you? I'm Jesus, whom you're persecuting. Oh, okay. So it's like there's a sense where something is awakened in him that he realizes, okay, this isn't just religious tradition from my past. This is present. And the Jesus I've been persecuting is the Messiah. And and I've just met him, and I've had this epiphany moment here. And so he has 3 days now of blindness where he gets to sit and just sit with his thoughts. He doesn't have anything to do but just to hang out with his thoughts until Ananias comes, lays hands on him, says, receive your sight. During this time, though, you got to wonder what's going through his mind. He's going through what I think all of us go through in embracing mystery, and that is a process of unlearning. We all want to figure all the mysteries out. We want to get to the end of the movie. We want to find out the end of the plot, the whole bit. I think Paul, by the time he gets to Colossians, he unveils what he calls the mystery of the gospel in Colossians 1. He says, this is the mystery of the gospel, Christ in you, the hope of glory. That's it.
Colossians 1.
Yeah, Colossians 1:26.
Is the whole mystery.
So you're
Wait,
talking
say
about...
it again.
So
Colossians 1:26.
This is what he says here. He says in verse 26, the mystery which has been hidden from the ages and generations, past ages and generations, but now has been manifested to the saints, whom God willed to make known what is the riches of the glory of this mystery among the Gentiles. So now he's unveiling the reality of the mystery, but not just to Jews. In other words, it doesn't just belong to one people group. This mystery is for everybody. So he's inviting everybody into it now. And he says, which is, now he's going to define it. The mystery is Christ in you, the hope of glory.
There are so many of these tensions in our relationship with God, time and eternity, sovereignty and freedom. But one of the most beautiful mysteries of God is that he makes us his mystery. Even we are a mystery that's unfolding.
So in Colossians, we're back in Colossians 1, because we talked about in Colossians 3, the revelation of Christ when he is revealed. So here's what's being revealed. In verse 26, the mystery hidden from ages past and generations now manifest to the saints, who God willed to make known the riches of his glorious mystery, which is among the Gentiles, which is Christ in you, the hope of glory.
So he is going to reveal this mystery. This is how he reveals it. He reveals it by Christ being in you.
In you.
And he reveals the mystery to the Gentiles by Christ being in you.
And this is how Jesus said in John 17 that people would know who he is when
we love each other.
Right.
Is that what you're talking about?
Right. When we're...
Is that in John 17?
So it's this. He says, Father, the glory that you've given me, I give to them, that they may be one, just like we are one. Mm-hmm. And then he defines that. I and you, you and me, and I and them, perfected in unity, that the world may know that you sent me and loved them just like you love me. So our unity with him and with each other, and again, that yes, loving one another, that's what actually puts who he really is on display. It puts his goodness on display. So if the mystery, Christ in you, the hope of glory, we got to define what glory is. We said hope is the joyful expectation of good. What is glory? Is it some like glowing existence? You know, the angels
We
constantly
just shine
around,
whenever
right?
we go through time.
Right. So
We do shine when we time travel.
So we're sticking with that. I get it. So what is glory? Okay, Moses in the Old Testament, he goes to the mountain 3 times. On the 3rd visit to the mountain, he asks God, would you show me your glory? And here was God's response. I'm going to make all of my goodness to pass before you. So the glory of God and the goodness of God are the same. Right? So people say, what's the glory of God? It's the manifest goodness of God. Okay, so when Moses came back from that encounter on the mountain, that's when he was glowing. When he got a revelation of the glory and the goodness of God, he came back and was reflecting that. He became what he beheld. He reflected what he'd been looking at. So in Ephesians 3:20, it says, now to him who's able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all you could ask or think, according to the power at work within you, there's that within again, it says, to him be glory in the church. All right? So where's the glory? It's in us. Paul, Christ in you, the hope of glory. The Bible says the earth will be filled with the knowledge or the revelation of the glory of the Lord. Well, what have we just said? Glory is the manifest goodness of God. Glory is upon the people of God. Glory is Christ in you. It's the goodness of God in the people of God that puts Jesus on display. And for us to do that, we have to know how good he is. If we don't know how good he is, what are we putting on display?
Yes. So whenever we have his wisdom or have his love, or his love always is the miracle that is so profound. But when we have his kind of, we relate to one another, he related to us, when we are able to, put him on display for him as if he really does live in us.
Yes.
Like you were talking about tonight, that we should have the solution, we should have the answer. We have not because we ask not.
Right.
He's in us. Like every time we do that, we are revealing the mystery that's been hidden from the ages. We're revealing Christ. We're showing the gospel. We're living the gospel. We're being
So let's
the
talk
gospel.
about the shining thing. Because you mentioned we time travel, we shine. What does Moses do when he comes down off the mountain? He's shining. Under an old covenant, in a time period, under a covenant that's not as good as the covenant we're under in the new covenant. Under an old covenant, a revelation of the goodness of God caused Moses to literally glow. Jesus said of us that we are the light of the world. So how do we glow again? How do we shine again? How do we become the light of the world? We have to see how good he is and put that goodness on display. That's it. That's the glory of God in you, in me, in us, together. It's the thing that you saw, which I love the story. I'd never heard that until tonight. It's the thing that you saw when I saw a friend across the room and we embraced. That's the goodness of God. And you see it all around you. That's the mystery of the gospel, which we haven't solved, but I hope we embraced. Yeah. I'll never solve it. I think that's why eternity is so long, because we'll never solve it. We will always just embrace it more and more and more. The hope of glory. For eternity, Lacey, we'll run into each other in heaven. I think we're all more one than we think, but let's say in heaven, we'll run into each other, and for eternity, a gazillion years from now, we'll look at each other and go, he's so good, isn't he? It'd be the same thing. He's just so good. He's better than we thought.
So God, show us now.
Right now.
Show us now.
Right now.
Yay, Lord, show us now.
How good you are.
Yay. Amen. Yay. Yay. That was good. Yay.
Your mother-in-law and your mother and I get along so great because I know she is a Christian. And I love her as a friend. And just socializing with Cheryl is wonderful to me. And
one of the things that we learned in the study is that when we embrace one another, what it's doing is we're embracing the Christ in one another. And it actually is, if we honored the Christ in one another, we would empower each other to be everything we're created to do.
Yes.
And I think when you're talking about Cheryl and your relationship with her, that's what you're seeing. You said, I know she's a Christian and we get along because I know you're seeing the Christ in her, right? And she's seeing the Christ in you. And that's your relationship is it on earth as it is in heaven relationship, because you'll go on forever in that kind of a relationship, right?
Yes. Oh yes. Have you heard this song? You probably have, both of you. I Can Only Imagine. Isn't that great?
Yeah. I love that song.
I love it too. Yeah.
Well, it was great doing the interview. Thank you. It was so great. You did so great for.
Well, I don't know how great I did.
It was great. It was perfect. Can I give you a hug?
Sure.
Oh, the Christ in you is beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Just as Christ is not a mystery to be solved, but embraced and loved and cherished, so your brother is not a mystery to be solved, but embraced and loved and cherished. The way that we proclaim the mystery of the gospel is that we behold the mystery of Christ. We behold Christ, and the more we behold him, the more we will display him. If we could only see his love for what it is, then we could display his love for what it is. The more we see his love, the more we will reflect love back.